Hello everybody, how are you? This is Kinesiology 214 and this is an overview of Module 1. Module 1 consists of sessions 1, 2, and 3, and it is more of like an introductory to how the body moves, how we break up body parts, and kind of an introduction to just movement in general. So if we open this up, what you'll see is, when you go over to learning modules, you'll see Week 1 is September 23rd, Week 2 is September 30th, and Week 3 is October 7th. I do that to kind of help you stay organized. I can just imagine how many different classes you have and how many different formats there are, different instructors, etc. I just try to keep stuff simple and organized for all of us. So on September 23rd, in this module, we'll be going over safety and spotting because that is pretty important. You'll go over this over and over and over again in this course, but this is where we'll have an introduction to safety and spotting, different spotting techniques. General adaptation syndrome is how the body adapts to stressors that are placed on it, both good stressors and bad stressors. And then the main muscle groups, which we're going to be using to base all of our lab assignments off of in the first part of the term. So in Week 1, on September 23rd, these are the main content points I'll try to hit, and these are the assignments you'll have. A lab for arms, a virtual lab that you'll find on Blackboard, and a check for learning you'll also find on Blackboard. You also have a post and response in there as well. Now, Session 2, Week 2, on September 30th, we'll jump into planes of motion, the 7 main movement patterns that the body has. And when you look at the human body, you have these main movement patterns that pretty much all movements are based off of. And then we'll go into flexion extension. And flexion extension just is in regards to a single joint or how an actual joint moves when you do a particular exercise. Now it changes a little bit when we get into Week 3 here on October 7th, where you have single joint and multi-joint versus just flexion extension. It gets a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to jump back into Session 2 here. We have the lab that'll be back, and then virtual lab will be on Blackboard, and check for learning will also be found on Blackboard. So when we get into content for Week 3, single joint, multi-joint movement patterns, I'll compare and contrast those, and then positive and negative and concentric and eccentric phasing of movement patterns, where it's sometimes easier to see single joint movements and you get into a complexity of doing multi-joint movement patterns. It's hard to see like what is concentric, what is eccentric. Sometimes it's difficult when you have these multi-joint movement patterns to understand like what is actually your main driver and how things are actually being moved. So what we'll try to clear up in Session 3 is how you can actually view an exercise and view it as like a positive negative phasing versus concentric eccentric. But make no mistake about it, in every single movement pattern you have different variations of concentric, eccentric, and isometric contractions. Bar none. End of story. Week 3, October 7, lab will be chest, and then we'll have virtual learning online on Blackboard, and also check for learning. So if we go ahead and open up Session 1 here, I just want to crank this guy open. When you look at this, the content has been loaded in for the headers here. You have safety spotting, general adaptation syndrome, and main muscle groups, and then assignments. Now, all assignments in this folder are due by 11:59 on September 29th. That's my 1 week minus a minute philosophy. So what you'll have with these 3 folders is all the content you need for the actual course itself. And then in here, these will be the assignments that you'll source, and you'll source those assignments and complete them on Blackboard. And then any supporting material that I'll have, perhaps I'll go to a website or I'll go out and find some information or something from our book, and I'll reference that here, and I'll put that in supporting material. When I do assignments, just be aware, when I do those assignments, I create announcements for them as well. So you can source them within the assignments folder for a particular session, or you can find them in the announcements page. So with that said, guys, that's an overview for Module 1. I hope that helps. You'll have one of these for each one of the modules going forward. Thanks.